Hey y'all, let's take a look at something that can come across as kind of complicated, but let's go through the why and the what and all that kind of stuff, and it'll make it a little simpler. Just to warn you a little bit, this is not easy, but once you just rotely follow the steps over and over, you'll eventually, kind of free yourself from having to look at the steps over and over, and it'll become second nature to you. And by the way, we will go over this in Algebra 2 again relatively soon in the year. So if you don't get it 100% for the rest of the year, you only got 3 lessons left, don't sweat a big bucket of sweat, I guess, or blood, or bloody sweat, or sweaty blood. Just do the best you can and just figure out kind of what's going on. If you kind of understand what's going on, next year when you do Algebra 2, you can figure it out better and you'll get the hang of it, I'm sure. So anyway, let's look at these 2 types of problems. First off, what are the answers to this 2? 2 answers to this equation. X squared is equal to 3. Well, if you take the square root of both sides, right, you're going to get x is equal to positive or negative square root of 3, right? Okay. In other words, you know how to solve that kind of problem, right? Okay. Well, you know how to solve this kind of problem as well, right? I mean, you do exactly the same thing to both sides, right? You go the square root of that, then the square root of that, right? You take the square root of both sides. So on this side, you have x plus 7 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 3, right? And to solve this, all the way, you just move the 7 over, and you've got x is equal to negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 3, and those are your 2 answers. Negative 7 plus the square root of 3, and negative 7 minus the square root of 3. You know how to do both those 2. Okay, let's look at this. What do we get when we do x plus 1 squared? Pause it and go ahead and multiply that and add the like terms. Okay, when you do that, you will find that you get x squared, and then plus x, and then plus another x, and then plus 1, which of course, that's going to be, that doesn't look right, x squared plus 2x plus 1. Okay, all right, do the same thing to the second one. All right, when you get this one, you'll find that's going to be x squared plus a 3x plus another 3x, which gives you 6x, plus 9. That's what you'll get, that trinomial. Okay, pause it again to do this one. Okay, well, you're probably at the point now where you recognize that, every time this number here is going to be doubled in the middle, the 2, the 3 is doubled in the middle, and the last, this is squared, that's, this 1's the square of 1, 9's the square of 3, and so on. So you might not even have to go through all the rigmarole. If it's squared, you're just going to go, okay, that's going to be double negative 6. That'll be negative 12x. And then negative 6 times negative 6 is 36. Okay, that's important. Look at that for a second. If you have this, that's the same thing as x squared plus 2x plus 1. And x squared plus 6x plus 9 is that. And then x squared minus 12x plus 36 is this. Okay, and if you had this, if they gave you this as a problem and they said, factor this, you could go, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I need 2 numbers, okay, that they add to give me 2, and they multiply to give me 1. Okay, that's x plus 1 times x plus 1, or x plus 1 squared. You can do the same thing for these 2. Okay, that's important. We're going to get to that in a second. Okay, now let's do it. Let's go backwards. Look at the first one. And what 2 numbers multiply to give you 16 and add to give you 8? And of course, the answer is 4 and 4, right? We don't need to write 4 and 4. We can just go ahead and write x plus 4 squared, right? Okay. So in other words, when you multiply x plus 4 squared out, you get x squared plus 8x plus 16. All right. Go to the next one. How does that factor? You tell me. I need 2 numbers that add to give me negative 10 and multiply to give me 25. And the answer is, okay, it's going to be 2 negative 5s, right? Okay. And again, you can write this like this if you want to. X minus 5 squared. Okay. And this one here is going to be, we won't even bother to go through all that. It'll just be x plus 7, right? Okay, there you go. All right. Now you see, let's study this first one here. Look at that. When you have an x squared plus an 8x, all you do to get the 16 is you take half of this 8 and you square it, right? Half of the 8 is 4, square it. Half of the negative 10 is negative 5, squared is 25. Half of the 14 is 7, squared is 49. We're going to use that pattern to help us do what we do next, okay? Well, let's look at this. How do we solve this left equation. Okay? And does it look like one of the two methods we can use to solve equations on the right? And on the right, let's say I don't have it on there, but can we either, go like this? In other words, we know how to solve ones. Oops, x plus 3, 7, it's supposed to be a 2. Let's say it's x plus 3 squared equals 7. You know how to solve that, right? You just square root both sides. And that's going to be plus or minus the square root of 7. Then you move it over, and you get negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 7, right? We know how to do those, all right? We also know how to do ones like this, where it says, x squared plus, 7x plus 10 equals 0, right? We can look at this and go, I can factor that. Okay, so x plus 5 times x plus 2, that's how that factors, equals 0. So I can go, okay, so x equals negative 5 and negative 2, right? Okay, but look at this one. I mean, it doesn't look right. I mean, you can't, what are two numbers that multiply to give you negative 2 and then add to give you positive 8? There aren't any integers anyway. So we don't know what to do with that. But we also can't kind of go, oh, x squared, we can lump it together and say, oh, that's going to be, in other words, it doesn't look like this. We can't say x squared plus, I don't know, let's go 6x plus 9 equals 0. So we can go, oh, wait a minute, that's the same thing as x plus 3 squared equals 0. I can, take the square root of both sides, and then x is going to be negative 3. That's my answer. Won't work. So we're going to need a third method. That's completing the square. Okay. What if this equation, which we have here, we just saw that. What if it looked like this? How could we do that one? In other words, this is the same as that. The 8x is the same as the 8x. The negative 2 is not the same as the plus 16, but let's say it was 16, the positive 16. We could do this one on the right, correct? We can factor this thing. We can go, wait, this factor, two numbers that add to give you 8 and multiply to give you 16, oh, that's just going to be 4. So x plus 4 times x plus 4 equals 0. So x, set both of those equal to 0, and that'll be negative 4. Or if you want to look at this like this, you can say, oh, x plus 4 squared equals 0. Take the square root of both sides, which means we get x plus 4 is equal to 0, so x is equal to negative 4. Now we could do it if it looked like this, okay? But we could turn this equation into that equation by doing something. What could we do to turn this equation into that one? In other words, what could we do to turn that into that? What would we need to add to the negative 2 to get positive 16? I mean, on a number line, you can visualize this, right? You're at negative 2, you need to get to 16. You're going to have to add 18 to both sides, correct? Okay, which you could do, you could add 18 to the, to the right, to the left side. That'd be okay, as long as you added 18 to this side, right? That's what you need to do. Okay, so we're going to actually do this now. So let's look and go ahead and copy this down. And you want to make sure you take really careful notes and copy exactly what we do on this, because you're just going to copy over and over this method, which at first is going to be a little bit crazy, but you'll get it after a couple tries. Okay. All right. So we're going to solve this by completing the square. Okay. By completing the square, we mean we want, let's go back a couple of slides here. Completing the square means that when something like this gets factored into something like that, and when something like this gets factored into something like that, where you can just go, oh, it's squared. Or look, this, oh, it just gets factored into squared. What we need to look at this and go, okay, again, this number here, we take half of it, half of that middle number, and then we square it, and that's the number we want right here. In other words, you take half of 8, 4, square it, 16. Half of negative 10, negative 5. Negative 5 times negative 5, 25. Half of 14, 7. 7 squared, 49, boom, and you got it. Okay, we're going to try this actually, but we're going to complete the square here. And basically what this means is we are going to finagle it so it looks like the kind of problem we just did a second ago. And it's okay. This might seem like a lot to throw at you at one time, but just, you'll get it. It's okay. All right, So let's first off, let's get everything over to the left. So x squared, I'm going to go ahead and move this over and turn this into a 10x because we're used to reading things that way. And then to a 6, okay? And that's going to equal now 0, correct? Okay. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a little space here. And I encourage you to leave a little space yourself too. All right, that equals 0. Okay, well, if you notice, the way we are able to factor things like this, and we're able to factor this is because, excuse me, this number here, we take half of it and square it to get that number. This number, we take half and square it to get that number. And this number, do we take half and square it to get that number, and so on. Okay, so we're going to have to look at this and go, what is this number right here? What is that number right there? We're going to take half of that number, and we are going to have to square it. So half the number of x's is 5. We're going to square that, and we're going to have 25. So in other words, this number should not be 6 for us to be able to factor it. It should be 25, because 25 is half of 10 squared. So to get from 6 to 25, we're going to have to add 19, right? But it's an equation, right? So that means we need to add 19 over here. Okay, so let's write our new equation. So x squared plus 10x plus 25 is equal to 19. All right, now, quick question for you. Can you factor this? And here's the answer. I won't give it away, but I'll, kind of help you figure out the answer. Well, I'm not going to give away the whole thing, but if you connect those dots, you'll see the answer. Yes, you can factor that. Okay, well, you can look at this and go, okay, now what two numbers multiply to give me 25 and add to give me 10? Well, of course, the numbers, it's going to be x plus 5, right? Twice. X plus 5 times x plus 5. So we don't have to write it twice. Let's just go ahead and write x plus 5 squared equals 19. Now look at that purple equation. If you saw that in your book, let's say you're doing your problem, say it's number 23, solve for x. They go, here it is. You go, oh, I know how to do that. I will just take the square root of both sides like this, and I'll go x plus 5, and that equals plus or minus, don't forget that, the square root of 19, right? And there's only one more step, which is to move the 5 over. So x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 19, and you're done. All completing the square is making sure this number is the number it needs to be to make sure we can factor this into something that you can square. Once you get it into this purple format, that looks just like a problem that you've done a dozen times already in Saxon. So you just solve it the normal way you've always solved it. So your only job in completing the square is to get these things in order, get everything over to the left, and then have a 0 to the right. Figure out what half of this number is, square it, and that's what you're going to have to turn this number into. And there you go. Okay, let's try another one. All right. Let's try. Okay. Let's do one more bonus one here. I'm just going to make this up. So I'm not going to erase all this here. So we're going to forget that. We'll go with x squared, and we'll go with, I don't know, how about we'll go with minus, I don't know, how about 6x? Minus 6x, and then plus 4. That equals 0. Okay, we'll just set it up for you like that. Okay. Well, your question is going to be, what is this number? What should that number be so you can factor it into a nice, set of parentheses with a squared outside of it? And we know how to find out what the 4 should be. We just look at this number here, and we take half of it, which is negative 3. Half of negative 3 squared is 9. Well, that's not 9, it's 4. So what do we need to do to both sides to make it 9? And then we're going to have to add 5, right? Since we did that, we have to do this as well. Okay, so this is our new equation. X squared minus 6x plus 9 is equal to 5. Okay, well, now we can factor this on the left, right? Okay, what two numbers? And they'll be the same number, of of course. That's the whole point of doing it this way. Add up to give you negative 6, and multiply to give you positive 9. And the answer is negative 3, right? There'll be 2 of them. So x minus 3 times x minus 3, or we write it x minus 3 squared, equals 5, okay? And again, if you were to open up your math book, 2 or 3 days from now, and you're doing a problem set, and they go, okay, this is your next problem, solve for x, you would look at that and go, oh yeah, I know how to do that. I just take the square root of both sides, and I move the negative 3 over. So x is equal to 3 plus or minus the square root of 5. And there we go. That's all you do. Half of that number, square it. Half of that number, square it. Half of that number, square it. If it's, it needs to be a 9, so we need to add 5 to it. Sometimes you might have to, subtract here and there, but we'll get to that later. Okay, let's try another one. Pause that and copy. All right, let's go ahead and rewrite this so it's nice and neat on the left side. X squared minus 5x plus 3, and that's going to equal 0. I'm going to leave a little space right there. Okay, now the weird thing about this one is, if you notice, that x, the number x, which is negative 5, that's an odd number. Okay, so we're going to have to do, but once the method works, you just keep using it. It doesn't matter if it's an odd number or an even number. Okay, so the method is, let's go back. The method is you take half of this number and then you square it, and you want to get a 9, right? So it ends up like this. On this one before, we erased that before. You take half of this number and square it, and it ends up as 16. That's what you want, okay? Now, let's say it is a fraction. You're still going to take half of that number, which means you just take a negative 5 and divide it by 2. There you go, okay? Now we want to square it. That'll be negative 5 halves times negative 5 halves, which will give you 25 over 4. I know that's weird, but it's okay. All right? We want to get this number. We don't want a 3. We want a 25 fourths. Okay? Now we can take a 3 and turn it into fourths by saying, okay, that's going to be 12 fourths. All right? So what do we need to add to 12 fourths to make it into 25 fourths? And the answer is, of course, 13 fourths, right? So we're going to add 13 fourths. And of course, over here, we're going to add 13 fourths. All right. Now we have a new equation. X squared minus 5x plus 25 fourths. That equals 13 fourths. Okay. Never thought you'd use common denominators the rest of your life, did you? Okay. There you go. All right. So now we can go ahead and write this as a x minus squared. And the question will be, x minus what squared? Gives you 25 fourths. Well, that's easy. What's the square root of 25 over 4? 5 on top and 2 on the bottom, right? That's going to equal 13 fourths. Okay. Now again, let's look and imagine you're in your, it's 6 a.m. You've gotten up fresh as a daisy. You're already on problem set or practice problem number 23, and it's in purple. They say solve for x. You go, got it, no problem. Okay. I just take the square root of both sides. That's going to be x minus 5 over 2, and that is going to equal plus or minus. And let's see, the square root of 13 is just the square root of 13. The square root of 4 is going to be over, and it's going to be 2. And then I got it, so I'm just going to move my, move this over there. That's going to be 5 and over 2 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 2, and there you go. Now you can put both of those numbers over one denominator if you want to, but that's about as hard as it's going to get for you. All right, let's try one more. Solve that by completing the square. Okay, so pause and copy if you need to. And let's take a look. Okay, well, let's put it in a nice, neat order we're used to looking at. So x squared, I'm moving this over, minus 3x, and plus 1, that's going to equal 0. Okay, of course, we don't want this to be a 1. Okay, what do we want it to be? We're going to have to figure it out. Okay, first thing we do is do what to this number? We take half of it, right? Okay, so it's going to be negative 3, and you don't have to get fancy, just divide it by 2. That's half, right? Then we do what to that negative 3 halves? We square it, right? Okay, so negative 3 halves times negative 3 halves is 9 over 4, okay? Right now we have 1. We don't know 1, We want 9/4. Well, if you want to, you can visualize this as just being 4 over 4, right? That's what 1 is, okay? What do we need to add to both sides? We need to add right here. To get to 9/4, we're going to have to add 5 over 4, and we're going to have to add 5 over 4, okay? Let's go ahead and rewrite this neatly so it looks good. X squared minus 3/2 plus 4/5, or 4/4 plus 5/4 is 9/4, and that equals 5/4, okay? So now we're at a point where we can just go ahead and factor, right? We can just write this as something times itself, okay? And the easiest thing to do is go, okay, well, what times itself gives you 9 over 4? Well, that's going to be 3 on top and then 2 on the bottom, right? It'll be a minus because it's going to add to the minus there. Then we have that equals 5/4. And now again, I want to sound like a broken record here, but if you were to come across this problem in your problem set in your book, you would go, hey, I don't know how to do that. No, you wouldn't say that. You would say, oh, I know how to do this. Okay, I just take the square root of both sides. So it's going to be x minus 3/2. And that equals, plus or minus, don't forget that. The square root of 5 is just the square root of 5. The square root of 4 is 2. And then to solve for x, you would just move over the 3/2. And you could put 3 and then plus or minus the square root of 5. And then since both of them are over 2, you can just put it over 2 one time. And there you go. And that's it. Okay. Not the simplest thing in the whole world. It's okay. But just keep in mind, your whole job is to take that number right there, get half of it, square it, and that's what you want right here. Whatever you have to do to this side to get to where you want, you have to do to that side as well. Then you take this, and it's pretty simple to factor this because this, you always take the square root of that to give you the number right here. And then you just solve it like you would a normal problem. Okay, all right, we have one practice problem to do. See how many steps you can do by yourself. Give it a whirl, then unpause it when you, unpause it when you're finished, okay? All right, well here it is, x squared. And I'm gonna go ahead and put plus 7x because I'm gonna move it over. Then minus 9, and then I'm gonna leave some space. That equals 0. Okay, we do not want a negative 9 there. All right, how do we find out what number we want right here? Well, just like always, we take half of this number. Don't get fancy. Don't say 3.5 or anything like that. Just go, the answer to that is 7 over the 2, okay? Then, to get the number we want here, we have to square it. So, yoink, there we go. All right, so that's going to be 49 on the top and then 4 on the bottom. Now, this is where it kind of gets weird. We are at negative 9 on a number line. Okay, so you're needing to move all the way from negative 9 all the way to what, 49 divided by 4, which is like 12. Okay, so you're going to have to change this into, change the 9 into a negative 36 over 4, right? Because that's what you have there. Okay, so to move from negative 36/4 all the way to 0, you're going to have to add 36/4, right? Then to get from from 0 to 49/4, you're going to have to add 49/4, right? So what you have is you're going to have to add 36/4 plus 49/4 to get the answer. That's a weird number. So the answer is 85/4. So you're going to have to add 85/4 to this side and then 85/4 to that side. Okay. Ugh. All right, let's go green here. So we have x squared plus 7x. Now we have plus 49 over 4 equals 85 over 4. All right. Now we know what to do here. There's only one more step until we're home free here. Okay. We need to figure out how to write this as a unit inside parentheses squared. Okay. That'll be plus. Now you tell me, what do you square to give yourself 49 over 4? And of course the answer on top is a 7, on the bottom is a 2. Okay, not that big of a deal. Okay. By the way, you're going to always see that this number is always going to be the same as the number here that you squared. You're just going back to it. Okay. Now again, if you saw this in your book and they said solve for x, you'd go, got it, no problem. Take the square root of this side, I get x plus 7 halves. Take the square root of this side, I go plus or minus always 85 on top, don't know what that is, but I know it's over 2. Okay, then you just kind of over the 7 halves and you're done. X equals negative 7 halves plus or minus the square root of 85 over 2. And there we go. Okay. All right, well, forgot to do B. So here we are in B. Pause it, give it a shot. When you're done, unpause it, we'll do it together. Okay, well, let's take a look at this thing. Let's put this in the right order. Let's go ahead and get x squared first, minus 5x here, and then we'll do, move the 6 over, it becomes negative 6, and we'll put as equals 0 over there, and let's go ahead and look at what we need to have it. We don't want no, we don't want negative 6 there. Okay, we know what we want, we got to figure it out. So again, we take negative 5 and go, I'm taking half of that, which is that. Then I'm squaring that thing, and then boom, and I've got 25 over 4. That's what I want. Okay, unfortunately, I do not have 25 over 4 right now. We have negative 6. Okay, not going to work for us. So let's go ahead and turn the negative 6 into something with a 4 in the denominator, so it matches it, and we can piddle around with the fractions. So you know what that is. It's going to be negative 24 over 4, right? Negative 6. Okay. We're going to get to positive 25 over 4, which means on the number line, visualize negative 24 over 4. We're going to have to move over that much just to get to 0, right? Then we're going to have to go extra 25 over 4, okay? Which gives us 49 over 4 we're going to have to add. So we're going to have to add 49 over 4, and of course we do exactly the same thing to the right side. All right, so let's rewrite our new equation. X squared minus 5x plus 25 over 4 equals 49 over 4. Okay, good. All right, so how do we write this? As a double, a number times itself in those parentheses. We're going to go like this. We'll go x and then have a minus there. And all we need to do is go, okay, what number times itself gives us 25? 5. What number times itself gives us 4? 2, just like it is over here. It's always the same thing. And write squared instead. And then that equals 49 over 4. And again, like a broken record here, or a dead horse record. Broken horse, dead. I forget what that says. Anyway, if you came across this problem in your math book, you would go, yeah, I know how to do that. I'm just going to take the square root of both sides, x minus 5 halves. And the square root of, wait a minute, this is going to be, the square root of 49 is 7, and the square root of 4 is 2. Yeah, interesting. So we're going to have 2 answers. I'll move the 5 over. So I have 5 plus or minus 7 over 2. Now don't stop here. You can add this, right? You have 2 answers, basically. One of them is 5 plus 7 over 2. That's a plus. The other one is 5 minus 7 over 2. Well, 5 plus 7 is what? 12 divided by 2, 6. 5 minus 7 is negative 2 divided by 2, negative 1. Look at that. 2 answers. No weird ones, okay? I hate to tell you this, but I want to rewrite this problem again. Let's right here. And they kind of tricked you. So x squared minus 5x, if you put this over, it's going to be negative 6 equals 0. You could have looked at that and gone, oh, wait a minute. I need 2 numbers that factor. They multiply to give me negative 6, and they add to give me negative 5. Oh, look, there they are, negative 6 and positive 1. So the answer will be the opposite of 6. Negative 6 is 6, and then the opposite of positive 1, which is negative 1. Anyway, the point is that this convoluted scheme of completing the square actually works. Those are actual answers, and it does work. So anyway, all right. You guys take it easy for real this time, and see you next time.